Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Please, I never say this, but please follow, like, comment. You can follow me on Instagram as well, Josephine_Renee_official. It means a lot to me because this is I'm just trying to get out there. Sorry, Bubs is just right in between my books having a little nap. And there's going to be some big sighs, and it's super rainy outside, and there's construction next door, so that's my bad. I have not made it there. I will preface the video with that. I have not made it yet into the industry or anything like that, but I've been around a long time now, like working in these different spaces and doing lots of different things. And as I said in my shelving video, I wanted to look at old manuscripts of mine and really go through the formatting, structure, and editing that is like standard, because I was not writing that. I did not know that. And to anyone out there who is especially, you know, not going through, I call it like classical training, like you're a classically trained, you know, pianist or like, you know, artist or ballerina. Writing is much like that. If you go to uni, you've been classically trained. And the big thing is like knowing, you know, the formatting to get you in. And you can search it anywhere else, but like if you are a beginner, and you don't watch any of my videos, don't, just watch this one if you're a writer, like please. Even the other day I was still finding little things in like a friend's manuscript, and she's, you know, finished 2 novels. I'm like, this indent isn't quite right, and it's such a huge thing. Like looking at this here, I will share my screen, look at this is insane, and it hurts my eyes. It's a struggle to read this. It's just hard, and anyone who's an editor, who's an agent, who's anything like that is gonna look at this and go, oh no. Like, it's physically difficult to read because you've been trained within that format. So this is the very start of the book. There are 3 prologues, and for anyone who knows, there's a big contention about whether you should have prologues, whether you shouldn't have prologues, because some people like them, some people don't. Can you guess what I think of them? I like them, but I would never get away with 3. Like, I want to do this because when you're in this writing phase, there are rules, and you think you can be the exception, but I want to tell you that you're not. It's so hard to get to that point where you realize, I am not the exception, I am the rule. Getting into a publishing house as a no-name nobody who doesn't have, you know, like famous parents or even like a huge following online or something like that, or anything backing me up to be like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, but no. The easiest way to get into a publishing house then is knowing the rules, following rules, and knowing that you are the rule, not the exception. You're not going to get accepted with 3 prologues. So, to start off, let's, like, for starters, the biggest thing that's troubling me right now is that, dear God, page break after each, you know, chapter, page break. Just that little thing up there, page break it. Like, you know, maybe if you're printing and you want to save less paper, that's the only time this would be like acceptable. Page break it. Like, it's just so much easier to read. Now, the next massive thing, let's just go from here. Let's just edit these prologues as something. So, I don't even know why it's not even showing. Is there different formats in here? But the fonts that you want, Times New Roman. Times New Roman. That's the standard point. The one thing, I'm just going to put it all in this for now. Times New Roman, 12-point font. 12-point font, Times New Roman. Go down, scroll down, scroll down. Find the Times New. Times New, Times New, Times New, Times New Roman. That is what you want. That is huge. That is, if you get anything right, that's what you get right. Times New Roman, 12-point font. Massive. Massive. This is readable now. As soon as you get, okay, go into a Word. See how this has like fins on it? Like, what are they called? Like tails, like little bits. That is like classical. That's classical writing. As soon as you have a font that is like, what was it before? Yeah, so here we go. Look at this font. Are there points on that? Does it have feet? No, it's a straight line. I may as well do Comic Sans. Korean New is used for scripts. So you'd use Korean New in a script. Oh, Comic Sans, you may as well use Comic Sans. Like, that is not, but you do use Comic Sans for comics sometimes. I still don't really love it, that's like, you know, the formatting that you use. And that's the thing. That's the huge thing too. Times New Roman. So, the ones with the feet are called like serif fonts. They're not the other fonts that are the straight lines. So for professionally published, blah, 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 standard of interior body text is legible serif font. One decorative one. Garamond is the most common industry standard. So you've got Garamond, you've got Bakersville, you've got Mayfield, you've got Sabin, you've got font size 11 or 12 point font. Is the standard. Times New Roman is still just like, I don't know if it's different for other places in the world, but Australia, Times New Roman. Garamond is this one, and that is quite a, like, you see it, you know it's fantasy, right? It is more classical fantasy, I'd say. Like I would say even, like, let's look at that. Like, that's not Garamond. That's too thick. That's not Garamond. That's and that's Brandon Sanderson. I actually don't even think this one is Garamond. And this is David Eddings' Pawn of Prophecy, which is like, you know, very classical fantasy. It created a lot of the tropes. But that isn't even Garamond. That's Times New Roman. So the other one is Baskersville Old Face. And so that's that one. It's very similar. You see it when you see it, of like, oh yeah, that could be fantasy. But again, I'm gonna say, like, Brandon Sanderson, like, that's Times New Roman, baby. That is Times New. I don't know. Let me double check. Standard highly readable serif fonts for the body text. That doesn't really help us. But you gather what I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and I would say that's Times New Roman, to be honest. And I would play it safe every single time and go Times New Roman, but especially a serif font. Please do not be using Calibre or anything like that for basically any published literary novel. Like, let me just grab, like, 3 randoms. Okay, this, I would take it back. This is not Times New Roman, and I'm shocked. This is also, this could, if this is not, yeah, okay, it is Times New Roman, thank God. This is an American author, and I don't know why that's not Times New Roman. Serif font again. But that's one. This back of the book is like not a serif font. Neither is this back of the book. That's super interesting that back of the books are without serif fonts, even though the inside is. Let's grab another Claire and another YA one. Because I think YA ones are where it's like sometimes there's like a bit of leeway. Yeah, look at that beautiful serif font writing there. And that beautiful. And then again, serif font. These are all different, you know, genres and things like that. But it's just such serif font. Like, I can't believe the first one I got out wasn't, but that's shocking. But serif font, Times New Roman, that also has like a massive following online. So I think they can get away with it like a bit more, like those kind of authors and things. So now we've got this here. I don't know what this blue means. I have no idea. Let's go there. Big thing. This is what I was like talking to my friend the other day about. When you have the start, let's just go. I like 18. I don't know. I don't think that's normal, but That's what I like. I do like it centered page, but you can do it to the left as well. Everything you write, apart from the title and things like that, should be left leaning, like should be left aligned. What's it called? Align left, yeah. So that's huge. The next big thing, we're just going to take this first chapter for the moment, and we're going to go point two. Point two, everything looks so weird without that. It looks really strange, but it doesn't get published in that. That's one of those things where like, this isn't published in point two. It's not. But when you're going through editing rounds and you're with editors, point two spacing is huge because it gives them space to like really read the words, to write comments without it getting too cluttered. Especially if you're printing it out, you have space for comments, you have space for copy editing, you have space for line editing. Like, it becomes a really big thing. So having it point two spacing, especially if they clarify that they want point two line spacing in a thing, which they often will. They will be like, give us a 1-page synopsis, point two spacing, which is like half a page synopsis, and you can't really cheat that if you go, what, I'm just gonna do 1 line spacing. But 2 or 1.5 is often also quite classical, and you can see how that first paragraph does look like, you know, quite nice. But you get, even though this looks a bit strange, you get used to it. You get used to it after a while. So the next big thing is this starts at the line. Even if it's dialogue, it starts at the line, and at the margin there. There's also things about how wide these margins should be. There's also things about like how big tabs should be, because the classical tab on your computer. So if I'm doing this, I go tab on the computer, I go backwards, and then I go enter, because for some reason when you just go tab and then enter, it leaves like a bigger space, and I don't know why that is. So I just tab, back arrow, and then enter from there, so that it's still leaning. There's a way you can set up your computer to do that properly, but provided you're showing that there's a tab space and you're doing that correctly, I think you can get away with it without having to like really, you know, go too deeply into it. All of this, there's a lot here, guys. There's a lot. There's a lot. Everything starts with dialogue, which is wild. But like, let's even just like go over to here too. I'm gonna fix it up. 3 prologues. We're gonna have 1 year later. We're gonna have My Bare Feet. Go, and then prologue 2. We're gonna start this one at the line again. And you may think this looks weird. I thought it looked weird when a friend showed me. And then you look at any book. Here's you look at any book and you see how the start of this starts at the line. It's strange, but it's just such a big thing. See how that is dialogue right there? But again, even though it's dialogue, it is still starting at the margin. And books are the biggest like examples of this. Like, if you're worried about something, if you're not sure where something goes, just grab a book, pick it up, have a look through it, and see. Because I was fully like, this friend, I was like, no, you're wrong. And she was like, pick up any book. And I did, and she was right. So the next big thing, you can see if I hold this here for any amount of time, I've got all of these lines, and that's because Grammarly is my friend. I am not a good speller. I am not a good grammar person. That's why I'm probably going to get a lot of this formatting things wrong, but I just think it's so important to know about it, especially when you're starting out with a story, because it is huge. Like, this already looks so much more palatable and already looks like I'm actually somewhat aware of what I'm doing. And as I said, as soon as an agent, as soon as an editor sees that, you can have the most amazing book, but if it's in like, it's just a, what's it? So it's serif versus sans serif fonts, which is what I thought it was. I could still be wrong, but yeah, so serif fonts have the little feet, and then sans serif fonts lack these strokes often clean mono minimalist aesthetic. So it's like serif versus sans there. But anyway, so moving on. I'm just looking up something because I really like Glass's thing. So like most magazines, this is a great way to check. So when you go into writing, often you're like, I want to write a book, and that's amazing. That's really cool, and you can finish a book. And I really learned about short stories and like getting different publications because Alexa Dunn was talking about it on her YouTube channel, and she's really good. She really goes into like some nitty gritty when it comes to query letters, because that's what I was up to, and this was before I went to uni or anything like that. And ergo that's why my book looks like that. And she was talking about all these, like, you know, often people in their query letter will cite other publications they have and things like that, and that is where different publications come in handy. So that's a good thing about the unis. They often have like a magazine or things like that. So do like a million other things. But one of the big things is, like, you know, you want to submit to Glass, you go, here is our style guide here. Style guides are huge. They are important. Every single publishing house will have one. They will have their style guide, and you can probably look for those. I don't know if they're actually that like available, but we could. So this is what's kind of there. That's like a whole book of like Penguin's style guide, I guess, and things like that. Yeah, but like publishers will have like a massive, like it will be like a dossier of just, but if we go here, this will have, I really like Glass's style guide. Like a lot of magazines don't go this in depth, and I really like it. So for writing, please submit your work in Times New Roman, size 12-point font and 1.5 line spacing. So that's not the 2-point, that's 1.5, but a lot of places will ask for 2. Do not indent paragraphs. This is a big thing where writing for books and writing for magazines differ. They don't want any indentations. We're going to keep indentations because if you look at any book, even this book, and you can see that it has indents, and you can see how they're used throughout the story. So include your name and your title in the submission heading. So one of the other big things that we can do with this as well that you should have is, so what is this missing? We are missing page numbers. I like bottom of the page right. You can argue against. You can also go into this as well, which I find, and go home. It's in calibre body. We don't want that. We want Times New Roman 12-point font. Everything is Times New Roman 12-point font. Thank you very much. Is this now? And no, it's not. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Will it literally not change? Yeah, no, now it has. See, now it's changed, and that looks already so much better than what it was 2 seconds ago. Just changing the font and formatting of that one. And then we're gonna want to go in the header. And this book was originally called World of Fae. Doesn't that font look weird now? Doesn't it look strange by comparison to all of this now? It does. It's very weird. I don't know whether they have to be 12-point font now within header and things like that. I just keep it the same. Just keep it. That's not actually what we wanted. We wanted Times New Roman. Times a World of Fae. I think actually the world should be capitalized as well. So this is another weird thing. When it comes to titles, you want to capitalize all of the main words, but you can leave like different things uncapitalized. I wonder if there's going to be, so in this you can see the title of the book just there too, Voice of the Ocean, and you can see voice, ocean are capitalized, but of the are not capitalized. Felix Ever After, I feel like all of those are just going to be capitalized. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Let's see whether that has, and you probably more see it, see like most of it just gets capitalized all the way through kind of thing. But it hasn't got it in any other version than just full capitalized. Perfect on paper. Let's see. Again, it's capitalized. Lots of the times it will be, but you can see it like there, sort of in these note ones, where it won't be capitalized. But that's a good thing to also consider when you're thinking about books, because a lot of the time you will just capitalize the title, or you will italics the title. So italics comes in when you're like naming the title of something. Say you've got a book and you're reviewing this book, and you put this book's title in italics, I think. I'm pretty sure. The same with song titles, but not the words. You put song titles in italics. I'm pretty positive. Let me double check before I say the wrong thing. Italics are used to emphasize tone and clarity text without disrupting the flow. Emphasis, internal thoughts. Okay, yeah, so you use it for emphasis to highlight a specific word in a sentence, or dramatic effects such as I never said she stole my money. Internal thoughts, to distinguish a character's direct, silent thoughts from spoken dialogue or narration. This is more when, you know, you're in that close perspective of I hope he doesn't notice, she thought. And then you probably don't even need the she thought, because it is in italics, and that's what that means. Titles and names, to identify titles of books, films, plays, and names of ships and artworks. So that's the one I was trying to get at. Foreign words, to highlight non-English words or phrases such as it was a true... I'm not going to say that word. And then flashbacks or dreams, to set apart often large sections of text and takes place outside the main current timeline. So it's really interesting. Italics have like a lot of uses, and they can get quite interesting in things. And that's also where titles are also super interesting, where like this. So again, you can see how this has, you know, the page numbers, and we have the title, and often we have the author name. And that's what we're kind of doing here. And you can see how this is capitalized. I wonder what this one is. This one is also, oh, see, there we go. So you can kind of like choose how you want to do it at all. Usually have author's name and then title, and you can, you know, capitalize that. You can keep it in that lowercase just there. And like you can see how that's like also a lot smaller. They haven't put it in 12-point font. But yeah, it's just interesting. And then this one, like this one doesn't even have, you know, those headers or footers. I find it is helpful if I'm wanting to send, you know, my book away to an agent or an editor, and I have the title of my book constantly there. I'm like, you're just constantly getting that little bit, like I feel like it's gotta sit in their mind, right, to like not forget the title, and then like, you know, read it and be like, oh yeah, that's definitely that book. That's what I hope for. Titles are like a whole, they are a whole other beast. But yes, so going back to when it comes to, actually, we'll go through the rest of Glass. So, Glass magazine, we've got their style guide here. Include your name and title in the submission heading. Some places don't want that if they're anonymous, you know, but that's good having those headers and those footers. You don't need to put your name in there, but just having your name on the work. Use the Australian Macquarie Dictionary for spelling. So, every place and every style guide will choose a specific dictionary to follow, which is also super interesting. And you want to keep to using that. If you use British Australian spelling, keep that. If you use American spelling, keep that. Don't like switch between the two. I haven't really noticed, like, you know, whether you should, you know, pretend to be American if you're Australian, anything like that. Like, just, you know, write what you want. Use double quotation marks. So this is another interesting thing. So quotation marks are huge. So here you can see I've done the double. I've got double quotation marks everywhere. Different strokes for different folks. So some people use, I like doubles, and then when you're like saying like, okay, someone says like, oh, well, such and such said to go left, and you put like the to left because such and such has said that within that person saying that in the single quotation mark sort of thing. It's like it's a weird thing if you're like quoting somebody else in speech or, you know, something to that effect. I'd then have single quotation marks in it, whereas if people use the single quotation marks, then they'd have doubles for that kind of thing, and they'd have doubles for like, it's usually just when it's inside those quotation marks that you'd use the other type of quotation mark. But yeah, heaps of people use singles or they use doubles, and it's just about consistency. You just have to be consistent. Every quote you use, every dialogue speech you use, you've chosen doubles or you've chosen singles. I think for most things like YA, you can see this person has chosen singles. I don't know if you can actually see that, but just there is a single quotation mark. And I would say like literary fiction, like this one. Oh, no, actually they've used doubles. So you can see how it's more just like, they just choose. Like, you know, you have your preference as a writer to what you choose. I wonder what this person chose. They chose doubles as well. Cassandra Clare, what do you choose? You choose doubles. Another fantasy one, what do you choose? Doubles. Brandon Sanderson, what do you choose? You choose doubles. Belgariad, what do you choose? Sorry, a lot of these are fantasy, you choose double. I should get some more literary fiction out for you actually, just to be, so let's go, like even he would never notice. See what this is. Singles. I was gonna say I think literary fiction would often go for singles. Let's go Tim Winton. What does he choose? Give me dialogue, dude. I think maybe that's more the issue with literary fiction. Is this one where he doesn't use dialogue at all? Dialogue tags, just like Sally Rooney. Gosh, dude. Where's your dialogue tags, man? People are weird like that. I'm off then. Stay, she said. I'll make coffee. No dialogue tags. That's why I'm struggling to find them. There's no dialogue tags at all. It's another one of those sort of stories. This is Breath by Tim Winton. So that's another choice. But for your first book, I would like to say you are the rule. You are not the exception. When you're up to... What book is this? Although, you know, Sally Rooney... was it... People... was her second novel. So yeah, kind of like sort of going to my point of like Normal People was Sally Rooney's second book, and that's kind of why she could get away with doing no quotation marks. Okay, Tim Winton published 8 to 11 major works before Breath was released. Again, you are the rule, not the exception for your very first book. Follow the rules, know the rules, show you can do them well, show the publisher you can do them well, and then they might let you break some. But double or singles, doubles is more standard. Probably do that. Go with the standard, do the rules, show them you know the rules. That's such a big thing. So yes. And then his voice quivered while the blades ornately plated in gold collided together. A lot of this is like, you can kind of, his voice quivered. Blades ornately plated in gold collided together. That just sounds better. If you're gonna do something after, you know, speech, you wanna do either like a voice thing, like his voice quivered, because that's like what he's saying. It's like he said. But if you use he said, you don't say he said, well, he pulled up his pants. You just go the speech and then he pulled up his pants, because that's like, that was something that this story struggles with for me. Okay, but down here you can see she's a siren. Ah, because there's the exclamation mark. Now the exclamation mark is nothing. You can still go, she said, in a lowercase beside that. The issue, however, is that this is a lowercase for some reason. It should just be, she's a siren, and then it's followed by the action of the person who said that. So the pupils in their shared brown eyes contracted with hatred is not actually, it shouldn't actually be there, because that is something that they're doing. Their shared brown eyes, unless that's, you know, it's a they them character. She's a siren. He held his sword firmly. That would be him. Or I would say Leon. Or I'd say Aaron. Sorry. Leon, because that's what that character who said that is doing. You know what I mean? And so that's why you don't need a dialogue tag. It's an action tag following that. And action tags, I think, are often a lot better than dialogue tags. And you can cut out a lot of your dialogue tags if you have an action from that person afterwards. But you do also need to cut that then when it goes on to something that's not that person. So I love her, Leon, please. This should be, you know, a comma because after their name. But you don't have to do that. But it is something that often is like names should be like bracketed by commas sometimes. So I love her. Leon, please, his voice quivered. And then it goes, blades ornately plated in gold collided together. It's not his blade ornately plated in gold collided with Aaron's. So it's an action that they're shared together. So it goes from the subject of that thing, which is Leon. Is Aaron, because he's speaking. And then it goes to like them. So it's like blades ornately plated in gold collided together. The echo of metal shook the old castle stable's dilapidated exterior, sending tremors through the rooftop of which they were situated upon. Not a great sentence, but we continue. The castle stables overlook the wide, deep, and treacherous terrain of the plunging mountain sides below them. So that's the subject of this is the exterior. It's the landscape. It's what's like sort of happening around them. And so that's why that is in like a paragraph together. And then these different things are by themselves. And then if you had like, his voice quivered, the cape blew around his ankles, the gleam in the eyes as he stepped forward. As Aaron stepped forward, because this is then all explaining Aaron, who's the one speaking, who's the one doing that talking. And I'm just showing this as like an example of how paragraphs work, especially when there is speech. And this isn't written well. We're not doing good writing, guys. We're doing formatting here. So let's go back to glass. Now I've gone on like a massive tangent once again. So use double quotation marks. Nice. Spell out numbers 1 through 9, 10, and up as numerals, which is a big thing. So this is more like some magazine terminology, but I think books tend to follow this one as well, where you spell like 1 to 10 using numerals. Like, so just go, there was like 1 egg, you just say like the number 1. But this is also sort of like more a like personal thing as well, because when you publish a book, not only will the publishing house have their style guide, you will also have your own style guide, which means that like this style guide is passed between different editors when they're looking at your book. So one editor will look at your book and be like, oh, that's weird that they've done, you know, numerals in this way, but maybe because there's the fantasy elements, they need to be done in this certain way. And that will be in your specific style guide book that you have. So yes, and then it's like, except where they begin a sentence, or might be confusing, e.g. for 10 kilogram bags, use numerals for ages and percentages, including for numbers less than 10. The expectation is a sentence that begins with a calendar year, e.g. 2020. 2012 has been a great year. You wouldn't say 2012 and like spell that out, but you would potentially spell out like 200 million rather than just writing that, you know, in numerals. It looks strange. Like a lot of this is done for like you don't notice it, but then when you're reading it, you're like, it looks right rather than it looks wrong. But then sometimes when you're like me and you've been writing this book, like that version there is, what's it, 274? Like it's been like, it's too, you know, I've done it a lot, and you start to like know what your formatting is then, and you can like see it, and then when you see other people's, it like it just doesn't trigger sometimes. So it's really good to know about this formatting and start seeing it, because even before, like this is starting to look normal now, right? Whereas before it looked fine, but you can just notice it, and then if you were working in it before, this would look really strange. But yeah, so use a single space after the period at the end of a sentence. That's just normal, you know, like this, that's just one sentence. We can't really use it as an example, but titles of books, magazines, movies, albums, songs, TV shows, etc. in the article are italicized. This was what I was sort of getting confused with, like, is it the albums that are italicized or the songs that in the album that are italicized? Most places just use both, and that's also where copyright can kind of happen. So I was talking to Alex. I was talking to a really incredible agent, and Alex Adset, and she did a big copywriting course, which was fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. But she was talking about how if you want to have quotes in your stories, for instance, and you want to like quote a song, there's copyright around the name of the song often, but there's not copyright around like the words in the song. Like that, but that's advanced. Once I get a bit better and I'm published and I know things, we'll do like an advanced course on this, but for now, yes. So all content must be your own original work. Any content that is discriminatory will not be accepted. This was super interesting. They used to have something here that was more this one here, that's like profanity is allowed, although unnecessary overuse and the inappropriate use of culturally sensitive words will be rigorously examined. And that's more of like the thing where they're like, you can use these things provided it's like going against that narrative. Like, you know, if you're using that bad language, it needs to be used within a way that it's seen as bad and not good. Please try using gender neutral words such as firefighter rather than fireman. I really like that. I really like that from a publishing house, that they're actually like, please, you know, like start using these gender neutral terms, you know, rather than like, you know, waitress, you have waiter, and rather than, or service person, or you have, you know, rather than you have policeman and policewoman, you have officer, you know, like things like that, that are just like these weird little niches that we should be better about. But that's just Glass's style guide, and there's so much more. And then this is like the photography submission stuff. But yes, so now to walk you through some things, I think I have here, that is still recording. So I may as well just walk you through all of my books things. So I've got my Google Docs, my hard drive, Google Slides, Kindle Direct, different dictionaries, RhymeZone, I love RhymeZone, like merge artist things, NaNoWriMo, which I don't think even works anymore. I didn't even know what half of these are, but here we have these ones. So, and we have for a writing aid. So these are the ones I really want to show you. So these are big editing softwares that, and then of course you also have now Grammarly, and you should just be signed up to these. Like, people might be against Grammarly, fine, but as someone who struggles with writing and spelling and editing and all this kind of stuff, Grammarly has saved my life. Like, it has gotten me through things where I would have gotten D's and in places on my, you know, criteria, and where I did get like failed marks in my criteria start of uni. This, you know, I don't now, because it's one of those things where I always knew, like, creative writing, the creative part is the part that matters. You can pay someone to edit your work, you know. So that's where Grammarly though and Hemingway and Pro Writing Aid come in really useful. This is what Pro Writing Aid looks like. This is what Hemingway looks like. This is what Grammarly looks like. And they're pretty great. So Grammarly especially, and also Pro Writing Aid especially, they will just make things better. And you can see in my document here that it's already done this. Like, a lot of this is Grammarly, but some of it, when you get deep enough, will give me Pro Writing Aid, will give me suggestions. But let's go for now. Let's just put this also, because I'm a massive cheater. So what I always do is I go first into Hemingway, because it's like a bit more chill, not gonna lie. It's like, and look at this. Look at all this wonderful stuff that it just does for you. So it's got your word count, it's got all of these. So the big thing that I find with Hemingway is that it's like, this sentence is hard to read. And it's also got the readability here, which is age 6. So 80% of adults can understand this text, which is really nice. But it's good to get that down as lower as you can, because you can still use big words, but it's like, put it into the readability of the sentence. Like, does it all make sense? Does it all flow? And that's where the readability really comes in. And this will also find like passive words. So this one here, so these are like weakeners, and these ones here are words with similar alternatives. I think it's purple, yeah. Whereas it says word with a similar synonym is like must or will, and sometimes it wants you to use that kind of language instead, or it'll find see, but like, even look at this, simply, I'm using simply too much, and you can see that. These sentences, Aaron was the eldest by a mere few minutes to his twin Leon, who remained those few steps behind all his life, never quite catching up except to the enormous shadow cast by his brother. Like, that is a hard sentence to read, you know. So is this one. That's just, you know, one sentence there too. And it just helps you see like these things here. Possesses, and sometimes you don't want to go too deep into it because it will take out some of that like flowery language that you have. But that's what that kind of looks like. And then once I've done that, I'll go, usually I don't even bother with Grammarly, but Grammarly is pretty great sometimes because it really shows you like these different things. Like, they're, you know, that one. Just as the tear wept over his murder did, Aaron's lifeless body fell to the cold marble floor, just as the tear wept over his murderer did. And now you can see tear is fixed. And sometimes it's just that matter of like, oh, I've used the wrong language and Grammarly is correcting it based on like what there is, but there's something around that is wrong. So yeah, this is actually like a Pro Writing Aid suggestion coming up here. Yeah, stature seems wrong there. But you know what I mean? Like, it does that. And then Pro Writing Aid as well has, and you can also like upload documents to these. I'm just gonna skip that for now. And you gotta give this a minute. Sometimes it's weird, but it will tell you like grammar/spelling, style score, style completion, sentence length, readability grade 8, sentence variety. This is great for sentence variety especially, because it will often say like where things are. I've just got to give it a moment to really load. But you can see like here, passive voice, and I can go into the 3 passive voice. He was caramelized. Where is this? He was looked. 3 repeat sentence starts. You. I don't know why this is like being strange now. It used to be a lot easier to kind of navigate. But you can see here that it's identified you. That's a really big, like, important thing that you can find, that you should never start a sentence with the same sentence starter 3 times in a row, 2 maximum. And then you've got to try and figure out a way to, like, reword that sentence so that you're not starting with the same thing. That's another thing that I learned as well, like, very late on, that you should really try to not use the same words repetitively, which can be quite hard, but it's a really interesting thing when you start to begin writing. Like, when I saw that simply and simply together, I was like, no, you can't do that. Like, it's just not a thing that you should be doing. And even this, like, let's see if we can become, I've got a real filler word for that. You can see that, you can see that. But you'll often find that you've got, like, too many words that are just too close together that are describing the same thing. Like, if you have glistening and glistening, you really have to start, like, you know, Googling your synonyms and finding, you know, different things. But yeah, I think that's kind of everything for the moment, just to give, like, a start. I'm sure there's other things, but this is already looking so much better of a way to, like, I could give this to someone now and they could probably, you know, read it without, like, wanting to tear their eyes out, which is just such a big thing. And obviously, you know, you fix up all these grammar things, you go through it, you write it out, and then you try again, and there's so many different little things. But just knowing those really clear basic formatting structure things will really help when it comes to, like, giving your work to anyone and making sure that they can understand it and read it without wanting to tear their eyes out, because they know how it should be done. And again, like, look at books if you ever are, like, unsure. Just grab out, like, 5 of them and see, like, okay, how do they do it? But yeah, I hope that's helpful. I hope that's, like, maybe taught you something. Good luck in your writing adventure, and please like, comment, subscribe, and go to my Instagram and look at any of the things I'm doing. I really appreciate it. Alright, thank you.